All right, 12 o'clock. Hello, and welcome to part three of the Sleigh in Notion webinar series, where we are setting up Santa and his North Pole crew in Notion. Let's dive right in. All right. In today's webinar session, we are covering a variety of things database related. I have created a private page called Database the Halls. I have favorited this, so it's easy for me to reference as we go through, and I can unfavorite it, and it'll go away, come back down. Here it is in the private section, and I can refavorite from here, or I can just do this, just to provide some context as to where we are. All right, so first, what are databases? Databases are a lot of things, and Notion, again, I like to plug these documents that the knowledge base that Notion has, because it is robust, well constructed, and super, super helpful. So there's a lot of items that we'll touch on today, but we're not going to go as in depth as every one of these pages are. So, uh, lean on those quite a bit. Databases are a way to store data that allows for some different operations that you don't get from a normal table or list view, thinking about it like Microsoft Word versus Excel, or a Google Doc versus a Google Sheet. Notion allows you to have a similar construct, but one of the things I love about using Notion is that you can more easily integrate within, sort of like how in Airtable you might be able to have nested data constructs. So in Notion, our databases store a lot of things. You can have the core construct as a database item or a record. Each item has its own page, like any one of these pages where it's just free form content, but you also have properties. Bring this up as well, just to show how in depth Notion goes here and tells you about all these different properties and what you can do and limitations um, within there. So why do we use these? So that we can treat tabular data like it's tabular outside of just a presentation. So we can manipulate, sort, filter, relate data in ways that you cannot do with a pure markup style or a presentation only table, like in a Word doc. There are a few ways to create tables, and that's what we will start with in terms of hands-on actions. The biggest thing that can cause confusion up front is that a Notion database can live as a standalone page, or it can actually be inline within a page. So if I were to go into my area here and I click the plus button and I do the scroll, or I click the plus button and I um, start to type database, I'll see all the different options. So there are quite a few. The top two are an inline database or a full page database. There's not much of a functional difference. It is more, the impacts are more around uh, your page tree organization and how easy it is to find these items. Inline databases, generally those you don't want to be some largely inter-referenced database, because you either need to know which page to go in, or you're searching for it all the time. So full page is generally what we recommend, and that's what we'll primarily be doing here with the North Pole content. You also see that the types of blocks that I can add. So again, I did plus and just typed in the word data, and it shows me all of the block options that might relate to databases. The other way to do this is that slash data, um, which as you use Notion, you'll find you use the clicking the plus button less and less. So slash data will filter all these different options. I can add views. So these are actual databases that house the content. These are all view options. So create a Kanban board database view, create a gallery list, etc. You can do charts and you can do forms. Forms are a pretty recent addition, or at least getting out of beta, I think, in the past year. Um, the Notion databases are already pretty darn powerful, but adding the forms and the charts, which are, I think, in the past 12 months or so, these have really gone live, bring it to another level. You can also do a linked view of a data source. So similar to how we have synced blocks, where you can have the content really living one area, but references to it and showing that content other areas. Linked views are also, we won't touch on these today, but we will in upcoming sessions, because and probably tomorrow's session where we cover relations uh, is where linked views come into play, because they help surface your data from a database all over Notion in different ways. And then you'll see there are integrations that offer synced databases. So you can hook this up with a variety of tools to pull data in. The two-way syncing and all that stuff, that changes all the time. So for your specific use case, go ahead and pull up the Notion docs and see what the integration with Jira or Asana might be, or whatever you're looking for. So we can create them new. We also can convert a table. So an existing table that we have, we could convert that into a database through one click. And we can import data to create a database, or import data into an existing database. We talked about what they store. We talked about how to create them. We will talk about views, filters, and sorts, but there's no point until we actually look at some databases. So let's look at data that the North Pole team has already created that is a good candidate for a natural database conversion. Now, the team actually already did create one database for the reindeer fleet. So this has the name and the age and the health status. And when we start talking about relations, I think we have got a lot of opportunity within the reindeer station to help them come up with a really clean process by relating items. Same with toy making. But let's start with a table. So we saw this elf directory in here, and this is likely incomplete unless they are hyper efficient. That's quite a trim list, but they might have. My guess is they started adding these things, and then they said, "Hey, well, this isn't a sustainable way to store this data," so they gave up and left halfway through. So let's go ahead and help them out. Um, I can select this. So the drag option here is also your context menu trigger. So the options that I might be able to perform, or the actions I can perform on this whole table, just like I can drag this whole table around, I can also do other things with this table. I can copy a link so I can reference it. I can change the width. But immediately Notion knows, hey, you've got a table of data. You might want that in a database. So let's do that. When I click turn into database, immediately, and I'll undo that so we can see we have that name, age, job, seniority level. Click the context menu, turn into database. Boom, here it is. It says new database. So it's the elf directory. Now, elf directory is actually living within this page. It is, you can see if I click on, I can move this database around. So if I wanted to have, this is the elf directory, I could drag this above this. This is an example of an inline database, and it can seem fine, and it looks like now they are also referenced in the page tree, so you'll see it. But the one of the issues that we have that we see with inline databases is that as you add more content, it's a sad content, I guess, is my lorem ipsum of the day. Um, these can get lost, and it just generally a bit more confusing. Um, and also providing additional context above and below because you can do linked views of databases, because you can bring the data into other Notion pages, it can be very confusing as to what's a linked view versus what's an inline database. So we generally say, hey, you know what? You've got a database, it's probably worthy of its own page. So when we click our context menu, we can either turn it back into a simple table, which is where we started from, or we can go ahead and convert it into a full database page. So here it is uh, now as a page, and it makes it a bit more clear that I've got some redundancy in my naming because we've converted this. So I'm going to drag this up to the elf operations home level, and this is now essentially an empty page, so I'm just going to move it to the trash. So our elf directory now is a database. Who cares? Well, in its current configuration, it might not appear to have much more capability because these were auto converted into text-based properties. So when we talked about, and I'm going to click plus up here so I can open up a new page. Again, Notion has this multi-page construct like a browser. And I'm going to pull up my database, the halls. Or if I wanted to, I could just scroll over to my database, the halls, and open in a new tab because I knew it was favorited. By default, when you go to open a new page, Notion opens up the search menu with the open in new tab. So it's super convenient to find different items that you might have been viewing today or in the past week, or by actually searching for the title or content. So in our database, the halls, we say, what do they store? Well, items, pages, properties. So items are, each item is a page and properties. The columns here are properties. Seniority level is a property of text type. Now, what is text type? Add text that can be formatted, great for summaries. You know, and I always, I don't know if I overkill a little bit, but these little question marks, these little onboarding tips, tricks, etc., super helpful. Even if I know darn well what a property does, I'll catch myself just making sure that there's not a different property that's better suited for what I'm doing. Because not only does not only do you fall into certain ways of working, oh, this works, so I'm going to keep doing it. That might not have been the best way to do it, but also Notion releases new things, and they don't email you or text message you with every feature, so you have to do a little bit of exploring in any tool. And Notion makes it very easy with these little tooltip popovers. So my properties, I can select individually, and you can see I've got this nice context menu. I'm going to come back to the name because this is the one property that is special and different than all the other properties. From here, I can select and change it. So maybe I love abbreviations or trimming bytes for no good reason, and I want to say LVL instead of level. I can do that from here, but I also, in my database, I have another context menu, a settings menu that I can bring up. When I do this, I'll see view settings, data source settings, and then some global items. Data sources we'll touch on in a bit. For now, we're talking about single data source databases. So when I open this, I have my view settings, and what I'm not as concerned about which properties I'm showing or all these fun things yet. I actually want to talk about the elf directory properties. So just like how I can select a property here and edit it in line, I also can go to the edit properties section of my data source settings and make any kind of modifications here, add new properties, select this, change it back to level. Um, but much more importantly than just changing the name, well, importantly, uh, much cooler than just changing the name is the type. So if the seniority level is, only going to be one of a few options, I can change that, and it will only be one of the options. I can change that into a select, and it will automatically go and create the available options within my select. So the select type gives me a sorting of the options. So I could have these alphabetically sorted or um, reverse alpha. Uh, I can change the colors. So junior elf, yellow, senior elf, orange, lead elf, pink, sure. Um, and that's very handy. So that is a property type. So now when I look at my list of properties, which is available just by looking here, it's available by clicking the show or hide properties, or it's available from the data source edit properties section. I can see that this is a select. If job, for instance, could be multiple things, I could choose multi-select, and it will do a similar construct that it just did for select. The difference being if I were to try to change junior elf to lead elf, that's that. If I were to say that Mary is not just a workshop greeter, but also a reindeer caretaker, it will allow me to put in both items. Um, this is annoying. I can't see reindeer caretaker. Well, that's okay. I can just turn on wrap content or unwrap content from my property column. I could freeze this column. I could change view settings that are related to this property or column from within the menu here. So I highly recommend, as you all build your databases, to continue to explore through uh, you know just seeing what you can do with these items and experimenting, freezing different columns, properties, changing different types, trying different formulas. Let's touch on this first column. So the first column, you can change the name, title, name, elf name, elf full name, whatever we want. But this is your title column. This is your identifier. This is your primary key. This is um, a special type of column that does not have a type. You can't select the type, whereas here I can change my type from a text into a number, which I want to do for age. And here I cannot do that. And that's because the data that goes into this column is not just this text spruce, it's also a page. So we talk about what databases store in Notion. Each record has a page and properties. So for Mary, I can open up Mary. I can see, okay, this is age, job, but then there's all of this down here. Press enter to continue with every page or create a template. So all of this, I could put content in here, whatever it might be. For the elf directory, we probably wouldn't want any page content, but or maybe we would. Maybe this is where there's additional items that don't make sense to go into a property, whatever it might be. That is the overall structure of what properties are, what each database item is, how it can have a page, and some of the basic property types you can do. What this enables you to do, and let's see. We said we could create one new, we could create one for a table, or we said we could import. And I saw that the toy making station or the toy making space within the elf operations. It shows a lovely cover image with you have seen that Bank Rest, Rankin Bass, Bank Rest. Uh, uh, Here Comes Santa Claus, I think. So nice. We have a toy production tracking page that was created, which is like, okay, cool. How are they tracking it? Well, they're just uploading a CSV. Now that is gonna be living somewhere else. So I asked around and I found out, hey, this is actually in Google Sheet. We have all this data. Okay, cool. So let's try something. Let's create a new database, a full page database. And when I create a new database, I have a few options. I can do a new empty data source. I can do something from a template, or I can import CSV. Um, so if I choose the import CSV, it loads. It says, okay, this is toy production tracking sheet one. And the next step is to map headers. Um, I now see all of those headers that I had in my Google Sheet uh, spreadsheet, and I can say which property type this should map to. So for category, well, that kind of feels like maybe it should be a select. So I could choose this and choose not to import it, or I could say, can we make this a select? The assigned elf, this probably should relate to the elf directory, but until then, let's make it a multi-select. Maybe you could have more than one elf working on a toy production set. I see that start date and due date were automatically mapped to dates. If I wanted to here, I could change, is it, the full, is it month, day, year, um, and make those changes, which they didn't reflect here. So let's see what happens when I click import CSV. Quantity needed, quantity completed. These are already numbers I can tell from the icon or from the list here. And then status and priority, those are automatically mapped to selects and notes text. This sounds great. Let's import CSV. So now that CSV that we had, uh, let's call it toy production tracking DB, something, is no longer just confined to being a CSV. And the team now, you all have the ability, instead of tracking it in Google Sheets and then uploading it somewhere or printing it out and having that page be turned into a paper airplane, you you have a database that covers, okay, what is the elf, when is this due, what have we done in here? And as I change these items, I'll also have record tracking. So there's version histories on all of these records and within this database. So you get that out of the box. One of the items that we can talk about that you all might find benefit from is this status field was automatically mapped to a select. Well, Notion also has a status property type. And this gives you sort of a selection grouping. So if I come in here and I go to edit my property, now I see, okay, not started, blocked, in progress, complete. And I can change the colors of these. So complete should probably be green. And when you start up a fresh database, the colors are what you would expect to start. They're not sort of random seeming like this, but that is something when you do an import from CSV, you might need to change the colors. That's fine. Um, and this is cool. So now I see, okay, this is status, there's in progress. But what we can immediately do, and I'm just gonna, I don't even think I had it slotted for today, but yes, views, filters, and sorts, excellent. I can add a new view where I have a Kanban view or a Kanban board of these items. And by default, when I choose, so I can say Kanban or to do or whatever we want to call it, tracker. Um, when I create this new Kanban board view, I have view properties. Like I could say, uh, is it what's the card layout look like? Is there a preview, like an image preview? How big is the card? Uh, and whether or not when I click on the card, if I should open it as a full page, as a center peek, or a side peek. And what that means is I'm going to click done here to get out of here. If I click this robot reindeer, this opened up as a side peek. This is a view of a page that I'm looking at on top of another page. I can turn that here into a center peek, or I can turn that here into a full page. But you also have the ability within a view. So let me slow down a second there. Uh, I'm on my new view tracker. I'm in my toy production tracking DB. If I go to my settings, I have these view settings where I could change the layout to something else. I could change it to a timeline. I could change it to a calendar, um, a feed, whatever. I like board for something like this. And I can choose all sorts of other things. So property visibility, well, I actually care about seeing who the assigned elf is, or I care about seeing the priority. I can just hide or display on these cards. Um, the status is implicitly displayed through the columns that they're in. Um, and that's all through the view settings. When I chose a Kanban board, it automatically uh, decided to group by status, but I could also choose to group by elf. So I can see, okay, button has all of these. I could choose to group by priority. You can do a lot of different things. A Kanban board doesn't only need to be by status or workflow status. You could just use a board view uh, without it being a Kanban pull the cards across. You can do anything with that type of view. I do want this to be by status. Um, and then even within this, you can choose your status by group or status by option. Uh, the groups not started, blocked, in progress, status by group, to do, in progress, complete. So the one thing I mentioned about statuses as a property type is that it allows you to group your select options. So for instance, to do might have multiple statuses within it. And I can always go into that if I'm like, hey, how is all this stuff configured? Okay, what do? I go to my settings for the database. I'm not talking about the view, I'm talking about the properties. What does my status property look like? My status property is a type status with to do, in progress, and complete with these three options. But if your in progress is just one of many, uh, you have in progress, but you actually have, in QA might come after. So you got your buddy the elf is doing the toy testing, and that might be its own status, but it's still in progress. So you can have this level of board or grouping that lets you group these the different status items and type. And if you've ever used Jira or any of these other Asana, Monday, any of these workflow tools, this is not unfamiliar, and Notion provides it in a very clean, easy way, a la database view settings. I don't like how small these cards are. That's better. Right. We are just about at time. There's so many more things to cover, like filtering and sorting. I want to reiterate the ability to do different views, and that when you are in a view, you can reorder stuff. That is affecting your view settings, your view properties. So we might call this all items, but I can have another table view where I say, you know, uh, in progress or upcoming or whatever. In this view, I could say, don't show me anything that is, only show me the in progress and in QA. So that's a filter. I can change my sort to say sort by priority, um, ascending or descending. So where's priority high here? And this now is a different view called in progress. I can reorder and say, okay, what I care about is that I'm seeing the priority, I'm seeing the due date, and I'm seeing the assigned elf because I'm the manager and I am the one making sure that we're not falling behind on the high priority items. If it's also, the due date matters here as well, we can add this to the sort additionally. So we have a due date sort that we can say when I did that due date sort, it removed the priority. So I will say sort first by priority, then by due date, and I want to save this view for everyone. So anybody who goes to this in progress view now is going to see the list of items sorted by priority with the due date, where if I change, okay, this is unrealistic, this is actually due the 17th, that item immediately jumped down here. Or build your own sleigh kit, turns out demand is low. It's gone. It's down in the build your own sleigh kit in the low priority. All of this doesn't affect the layout and view structure that you get in your all items database view. The category ordering or the property ordering in the columns here remains the same regardless on both sides. And same with the tracker, except that the data does get reflected. I can't believe I have to stop at this sort of spot because showing your templates, what happens when you click new. Okay, I have all this stuff, but you can have a whole template. So if you've got different tasks, or that each one of these toy tracking items needs to have uh, what's the QA process as a checklist. Well, you can include that in your template by saying, heading to QA process with a checklist that's just empty, and we say, okay, that's good. Do I need to save this? I don't think so. I can just do okay, new page. Um, Boom, QA process is right here. So every time I create a new record in this database, I have page content that's templated out. That's where this is the kind of thing that you might actually like to have the page content on a database item. But we will talk about how to take this and make it uh, way more powerful by using things like relations and roll-ups and formulas, things that will be able to take your quantity completed minus quantity needed, do things like that, but also things like giving your elves an elf specific view of the tasks they have at hand, whether it's toy production or reindeer stall cleaning, because we know that's a big one at the North Pole with people magically erasing themselves from the stall cleaning schedule. All right. Thank you all for your time today. And whenever you might be watching this during your next eggnog break or whatever it is, um, hopefully this was informative. And we look forward to walking through all of the additional power within databases that are going to help you guys get set up nicely um, to operationalize the different things you have going on at the North Pole. I believe we're doing our next session tomorrow at 12:30 to cover relations. But as always, these are free to join live, but also free to check out on YouTube or in the LinkedIn events page. All right. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. Cheers.